about your car accident. How long ago was that, and what happened?
It was 15 years ago, which is hard to imagine, actually coming up in May. And we were a mile and a half, maybe 2 miles from our house, coming home from swimming, and a truck ran a red light going about 50, and we were in just a small 4-passenger vehicle, and he hit right on my door. And so through that, I had a lot of injuries. Do you want me to tell you all those
Yes.
injuries? Okay.
Yes. What kind of injuries?
The biggest one and the most important one was I had a head injury. They didn't know that at the time because they were just trying to take care of all the other physical things that were life-threatening. Lacerated my liver, and so that was a big one. But I also broke ribs, punctured a lung, broke my hip, hurt my shoulder, had cuts, all the glass shattered. So at the time, I know when they took me to the hospital right away, they sent me to Austin to a special unit because of the lacerated liver.
Okay.
That was something
That was
hospital
first
here.
priority.
Yeah, that was kind of a life or death situation at the time.
Were you in a life or death situation?
I was, and I still to this day don't remember 6 weeks of my life, and that has to do with a head injury. But at that time, it was because of the liver that they were trying to figure out what to do with all the internal bleeding.
And how long were you in the hospital?
I was in critical 10 days, and then I was transferred to another unit.
And then after that was taken care of, then they realized the head injury.
Yeah, I think they realized it in the hospital. Once I woke up, I mean, I was out, obviously. So once I woke up and they were asking me things, I think it was my family who first realized, did they realize that they just asked her that and she doesn't,
Okay, so it was memory.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you know your family?
I did. I didn't have any, there was no long-term loss. So I
Okay.
still recognized everybody. It was short-term.
Okay. So then what? Lots of physical therapy?
Yeah, lots of physical therapy. I had bruising on my brain, and so they had to wait for the swelling to go down. And at that point in time, my husband tells me that they really couldn't tell him exactly how I was going to come out. Yeah,
That's so scary.
yes.
Now, you had already started your family or not?
My oldest son was in the back seat, 4 months old.
4 months old. So you couldn't be a mother at this time.
Could not be a mother.
So I suppose your husband had to be mother and father for a while.
And make all the decisions financially. What am I going to do with her? How am I going to get her help? My parents helped. My sisters both helped. Nobody lives close, but everybody came in, and so everybody helped. And then I actually went and stayed at my parents' house for a while when Scott had to go back to work some, so that we could get help taking care of my son.
So how long was the physical therapy, the rehabilitation process?
Probably a good 6 months. I had a lot of different type of physical therapy, occupational, to speech, to physical, and so nobody really knew how the other was going to turn out. I was in good physical health when the injury happened, and that they credit that a lot to how that I lived, first of all, but that I came through well because I was in good physical shape when this happened. But my husband and I both talked about that. We think it was about 6 months. And then a lot of other things through the years too that I've had to do.
I suppose, fine motor skills, but what about growth? Did you have to learn how to walk again?
Well, with the broken hip, that was I had to do physical therapy and learn. It wasn't that I didn't know how to walk. The bruising on the brain was on the left side, so my right side was injured. So I had to relearn how to write.
Okay.
I had to relearn how to talk
So
correctly.
your speech was
Speech was impaired.
slurred?
Slurred. I couldn't come up with words that I wanted to say.
Okay.
So obviously very
Do you
frustrating.
have memory of that part?
I have the memories that I have of that rehab time are hit or miss. Yeah, and then I've talked to a good friend of mine. It was my therapist at one point. So a lot of what she tells me, and now I don't really know if it's what I've heard from them or if it's from memory. none of the accident part I remember. That's all from my husband and families telling me. But I do remember some of the struggles and some of the frustrations. Feeling I was crazy. That was the biggest thing because of the head injury. Noise was really, really bad. I couldn't read. I couldn't understand TV. So basically, I could sit and be quiet. Noise was really loud. I couldn't really even stand to be around other people in the same room unless they were whispering. So it was very isolated. And I didn't understand what was wrong with me because I didn't know I had been in a car accident. So for about 6 weeks was kind of a living hell is how I describe it, because I didn't understand what had happened to me, but I knew that I thought I'd gone crazy.
Of course, that 6 weeks you probably have not a lot of memory, but after that, let's talk about coping. Were you mad at God? How did you cope with this accident and all the changes that has happened to you?
I don't ever remember being mad at God. I remember being very frustrated and just, that's probably where it helped again with the coaching, with the personality of overcome, fight, work through it, because it was a lot of fighting, a lot of work that it took to get back to where I am today. It was, I kind of took it on as a challenge, like, you got to do this, you're going to get back. Everything's going to work out, and not really knowing for sure at that time if that was going to happen. And you just learn to adapt to what you can and can't do anymore, and you make changes. And for months, I wrote lists. I had the little sticky notes with me everywhere I went, and I would just write it down and stick it where I would need it. Even a year or two outside of it, if I would travel with my husband, I can't remember numbers still to this day. And so, like, if we're staying in a hotel and he's not with me, I would not remember the number of the room we were staying in. So I would just write it down, put it in my purse. Just adapting, learning the things that you don't do well, and adjusting for that.
Was there times you wanted to give up and you needed other people to motivate you?
Absolutely. I think that the last memory I have of being at home with my parents before I completely woke up and realized what had happened, I was to that point at that time where I just, if this is going to be my life, this stinks, and I'm just a burden. I didn't want to be a burden to my husband, to my family, and yeah.
Tough. Well, you spend a lot of time with different kinds of therapists. I also have students that go into that field. I suppose they were like little angels at some point to help you through this time.
Definitely. Yes, it can make a big impact on somebody who really needs help
Right.
at that time.
Very satisfying and needed career
Yes.
field. Well, let's talk about the ramifications long term. You said you still have some short-term memory with numbers. What are some other things that you live with and cope with on a daily basis?
That have to do with pain or with memory?
Both, either or.
Okay.
You have physical pain?
I've had a couple of surgeries since then. With the head injury came what's called occipital neuralgia, and it's the nerves in the back of my head don't work properly. They fire constantly instead of only firing when touched. So I've had some work through my neck where they tried to go in and cut those nerves, and then also through my head where they tried to cut those nerves. I think the time where they went through my neck, it left, it didn't do good things for my neck, put it that way. So I still have some issues with both my head and my neck. My head has gotten better over the last even couple of years, I think. They don't really know exactly why. Nerves do regenerate. And then I am on, on the medicine that I have to take. I've been able to cut it down some, but I don't sleep well. That was a big, trying to figure out medicine-wise how much to take and not be a zombie, but yet have enough pain control. So that was a year's process. Noise is a lot better, but I still have to be smart about, I don't go to concerts or just places with a lot of flashing lights and a good spot for me. I have a couple of people that I still see on a regular basis to kind of what I say they kind of keep me together. I see what's called a Nuka chiropractor, and she helps kind of keep me together. So it's been a trial and error process over many years of what helps, what doesn't help, what can I try. So it's a long process, still ongoing,
Right.
but better.
And still some chronic pain.
Hmm.
I don't know what that's like to have to know that's probably not always going to go away.
Not completely. One of the things that you, because you're my good friend, realize when we go to movies, I take my ice pack. So in order to sit back on any kind of chair, I have to have an ice pack. And so that's weird for anybody who doesn't know me, but that's just part of my life, you know. So there are certain things that I have to remember. You know, you always travel with that, and other things. You know, you have to take your medication when you need it, and I think just adapting, like I said earlier, that some people wouldn't even know that I had been in a car accident before, you know, unless they knew me well or they asked specific questions.
Right. And I know you played after that some basketball and then had some knee injuries. So have you given it up completely?
Unfortunately, I've had to. Yes, I've had 3 knee injuries. Both ACLs have been torn in both knees. And that is between the car accident and the knee injuries. I think that's probably been the hardest part especially about physical wellness, because I've had to change so much from what I really love to do. You know, I love to jog and I love to be outside, and I can't jog anymore. And that was being outside in the environment was kind of a very good, peaceful, relaxing thing for me.
You still ride your bike outside.
I still ride my bike. That's right. So you just adjust.
have to
I think that's the biggest thing is we don't know what life's going to give us, and we can't always plan it out. And I am a planner, but you have to adjust. So I can't do the things that would be my first choice anymore, but I can do other things. So I'm grateful for that. You know, I can ride my bike, I can do the elliptical, I can lift weights. I can't really do classes because I have to do things that I know my body can do rather than try to do what somebody
And
else
they're
tells
loud.
me. Yeah, and they're loud.
And you can't go out and play with your team either.
I can't. I can still do a few things, like I can be a passer and I can kind of demonstrate a few things anymore, but that's been an adjustment for me on how I coach, because I was always out in the middle with them, in the fix, showing them what to do, and so to coach from the sidelines has been it was very frustrating for a long time, but very different. So I'm still learning exactly how to still be the best coach I can be without being the example